Chelsea fans are angry. And honestly, as a Manchester United fan, I completely understand why. Because Chelsea have just handed us a 22-year-old Brazilian midfielder who could become seriously important for Manchester United. And we didn't just get him on a loan, we paid £48 million guaranteed with another £2 million in potential add-ons. And Chelsea also kept a 10% sell-on clause. Andrey Santos is now a Manchester United player until 2031, with an option for another year. But here's what makes this transfer so interesting. Santos wasn't even a guaranteed starter at Chelsea. Last season, he made 27 Premier League appearances and started 13 of them. So why did Manchester United spend up to £50 million on a player Chelsea were willing to sell? As a United fan, I think there are 5 big reasons. And the more you look at the numbers, the more this transfer starts to make sense. Reason number 1, Manchester United desperately needed a midfielder. Let's be honest, our midfield needed rebuilding. Casemiro left at the end of his contract. Manuel Ugarte suffered a serious knee injury while playing for Uruguay at the World Cup and is expected to miss a substantial part of the season. And that left Mainoo as the only senior central midfield option available to Michael Carrick before the summer rebuild really got going. Now add Champions League football back into the schedule. More matches, more pressure, more rotation, more need for midfield depth. So United couldn't just sit there and hope everything worked out. We needed another midfielder, and we didn't sign just anybody. We signed a player whose profile actually makes sense for the way Carrick wants his team to play. That brings us to reason number 2. Santos can do something this midfield has been missing. He can win the ball and then actually play. And that sounds simple, but it's incredibly important. Last season in the Premier League, Santos averaged 2.7 tackles per 90 minutes. His tackle success rate was 74%. Casemiro's was 64.3%. And Santos was even more impressive in ground duels. Among midfielders who played at least 1,000 Premier League minutes, his 67.8% ground duel success rate was the best in the league. That's not a YouTube highlight. That's a midfielder who consistently wins his individual battles. But here's the part I really like. Once Santos wins the ball, he doesn't just panic and give it away. He can actually progress possession. He averaged 57.1 passes per 90 minutes last season with a 90.1% completion rate, and his 14.4 forward passes per 90 were higher than Mainoo's 13.5 and Manuel Ugarte's 13.0. So you're getting the defensive side, but you're also getting someone capable of starting the next attack. And that matters massively for United. Because reason number 3 is Mainoo. I don't want this signing to become a debate about Santos versus Mainoo. I actually think the best version of this United midfield could involve both of them. Mainoo's biggest strength is what he does when he gets freedom. He can carry the ball, he can glide past players, he can connect midfield to attack, he can break lines. But sometimes you don't see the best version of Mainoo because he's being asked to do too many jobs. And this is where Santos becomes really interesting. Santos is comfortable operating deeper. He can receive the ball from the center backs. He can protect the defense. He can win duels. He can recycle possession, and he can move the ball forward. And that means Mainoo doesn't necessarily have to sit there worrying about everything happening behind him. He can go, he can carry, he can attack, he can take risks. And for me, that is one of the biggest reasons United made this signing. We're not necessarily buying Santos to replace Mainoo. We're potentially buying Santos to unlock Mainoo, and that's a very different thing. Reason number 4, this guy is much better on the ball than people realize. When the transfer first happened, I saw plenty of people asking the same question. Why are Manchester United paying nearly £50 million for a midfielder who wasn't even a regular starter at Chelsea? Fair question. But then you look deeper. Santos completed 89.9% of his passes in the Premier League last season. Under pressure, that figure was 86.5%. He also completed 82.2% of his passes into the final third, and he averaged 8.1 line-breaking passes per 90 minutes. That is the bit that gets me excited, because United don't just need someone who can tackle. We need someone who can receive the ball under pressure and help us escape it. Someone who can take possession from the defenders, turn, find the next pass, and get the team moving. And Santos has shown that he can do exactly that. He's not simply a destroyer. He's a midfielder who can help United control the game. And that brings us to reason number 5, Michael Carrick. This is where the transfer starts feeling very deliberate. Santos is Carrick's first permanent signing as Manchester United head coach. And think about that for a second. Carrick isn't just looking at a famous name, he's building a midfield. He already has Mainoo, he now has Santos, and United have also added Youri Tielemans. So suddenly you can see the idea. Different midfielders, different qualities, different ways to control a match. And Santos fits particularly well because Carrick's system puts a huge amount of importance on the midfield base. According to Premier League analysis, Carrick has favored a 4-2-3-1 structure, which makes having reliable options in those central positions extremely important. And Santos has already had a taste of Carrick's football. He made his Manchester United debut in preseason against Wrexham on July 18th. It wasn't some dream debut. United lost that game 1-0. But the important thing is that Santos is already being integrated into Carrick's team rather than being treated as some distant project for the future. And there is another reason I like this signing. The player himself wanted Manchester United. Santos has spoken about how special the club is to him and his desire to make his name in United history. That matters because we've had enough players arrive at Old Trafford who looked at Manchester United as just another job. Santos doesn't appear to see it that way. He knows the size of this club. He knows the pressure, and he has chosen to embrace it. But as excited as I am, I'm not going to pretend this is a guaranteed success. It isn't. That's the honest part. Santos is 22. He has only had one full Premier League season with significant involvement. He wasn't an undisputed starter at Chelsea. And despite all the impressive statistics, he still has to prove that he can perform consistently for Manchester United. There are also physical questions. Opta's analysis found that his pressure numbers weren't especially high compared with other Premier League midfielders. And United may still need another powerful runner in midfield to deal with transitions. So no, I don't think Santos has magically solved every problem in our midfield. He hasn't. But I don't think that's what this signing is about. This is about building a midfield that gives Carrick options. And more importantly, it's about building a midfield where the players actually complement each other. Tielemans can progress the ball and create. Mainoo can carry it. Santos can win it, protect it, and move it forward. And Bruno Fernandes can operate higher up the pitch and focus on what he does best. That's the vision. And honestly, I like it because when you look at Santos's numbers from last season, this isn't some random £50 million gamble. He ranked first among Premier League midfielders under 22 for pass completion and progressive passes per 90. He was the best among qualifying midfielders in ground duel success. He barely got dispossessed. And he showed that he can play forward from deep. That's a pretty interesting profile for a 22-year-old. And there's one final thing that makes this transfer fascinating. Chelsea didn't sell us a player who had failed. They sold us a player they couldn't guarantee a starting role to. There's a huge difference. Santos spent the previous season at Strasbourg where he scored 11 goals and provided 5 assists during his loan spell. He returned to Chelsea and made 43 appearances in all competitions. But with Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez ahead of him, regular Premier League starts were still difficult to guarantee. Chelsea decided the money was worth more than keeping him. United decided the potential was worth the investment. And now, the pressure is on us. Because if Santos becomes the midfielder Chelsea fans fear he could become, Manchester United may have just pulled off one of the smartest pieces of business of the summer. But if he struggles, £48 million is going to look like a very different number. As a United fan, I'm willing to take that risk. Because for the first time in a while, this doesn't feel like signing a player simply because he's available. It feels like signing a player because he fits. He fits the manager, he fits the midfield, he fits the rebuild, and potentially he fits Mainoo. That's what excites me most. We're not asking Andrey Santos to come to Manchester United and become the finished product overnight. We're asking him to grow. We're asking him to compete. We're asking him to win the ball, play forward, protect the defense, and give Mainoo and Bruno more freedom. And if Michael Carrick can turn that potential into consistency, United might have found something very valuable. So Chelsea fans can be angry. I don't blame them. Because if this kid becomes the player they think he can become, they may eventually look back at this transfer and ask one very painful question. Why did we sell him to Manchester United? And as a United fan, I'm hoping we get to hear that question for a very, very long time.